Everyone, the Financial Compass with Mish Schneider. I am your host, Todd Schoenberger, and the star of the show, star every week, is Mish Schneider. She is the chief strategist at marketgauge.com. Mish, I know you're in sunny and very warm New Mexico right now, but on the East Coast, we are bracing ourselves for what is being told is an apocalyptic snowstorm. I'm talking people running not just to the grocery store, but to the Home Depot to grab actual plywood to put up in their windows because this is going to be like a hurricane hitting the mid-Atlantic. Natural gas futures, as you can expect, are rising. They're actually at the highest point since 2022. You brought it up last week. You talked about the low price for natural gas. How should people be trading natural gas these days?
Okay, well, first of all, the media tends to hype things. We know that, like everything, including weather. Weather is probably one of the biggest things they tend to hype. How many times, Todd, have we seen like it's going to be the storm of the century? And it sort of whimpers away. I mean, obviously, Florida has been a big headline every hurricane season that this is going to be the thing to wipe out Florida. And, you know, it usually has never been to the degree. And when it is to the degree, it's dealt with. So let's start with not panicking. And yes, you're right, though. People have gone to the stores and have emptied the shelves. So
Empty. It's panic city in Washington, D.C. right now.
And I'm in Santa Fe, as you mentioned. It's 37 degrees here right now, so not quite so sunny and warm. And we're supposed to get the storm too, by the way, starting tomorrow. So yeah, this deep freeze, first of all, it's amazing. Let's tie it back to natural gas, that people forgot it was winter. Yeah. You know, that's number one. And we know that has a big impact on natural gas prices when there is a freeze like we're seeing now. But also there is talk that this is more than just about the freezing cold, that this is now a result of a lack of real natural gas supply, and now producers are starting to buy it up as well. And of course, you know, we discussed this last week about the futures market is the hedge for producers, right? 98% of commodities are speculated, but 2% actually result in some kind of a delivery. So that's something to be interested in, because when it comes to natural gas, the spot price is well over the back prices. And so what we want to know now, what's going to happen when we roll over into the next contract. That's, as a commodities trader, you know, you look at these spreads very carefully, the spread between the spot month and the back months. And right now they're skewed, which could be a sign that this is temporary, or it could be a sign that this is just beginning, because if it starts to roll into the next contract month, which is March, then we possibly can see this continue. So if we put some numbers on it, I have to say I was very, very public about natural gas on Friday. I tweeted, or I should say,
yes, you were,
that I had bought it, and I did. I bought BOIL, though. I bought BOIL because, you know, I love leverage. Why not? And I bought it on because it closed slightly above the tick low of that contract on Thursday. It closed above Thursday's high on Friday. So I bought some, and I figured, I don't think I have that much to risk. And of course, woke up to this incredible 75% gain since then, which has been definitely my best trade since silver. So what would I do right here? Well, obviously I'm already in it, and hopefully people got into it, because again, we talked about it a lot on Twitter, and you and I talked about it last week. So I would say trailing stop. For now, I like a trailing stop under basically yesterday, which would be Wednesday's low, which would be at around 320. I don't have my glasses on, but it looks like 320.
Okay. Yep.
And I'm looking at the March contract here. It just cleared the 200-day moving average yesterday and now getting follow through today. So your next real resistance is going to be up at around 379. Let's call it 380, where the 50-day moving average is.
Okay.
So what that tells me now is that we are running into some resistance. So if the weather isn't as bad as we thought, we might see a sell-off there. I don't know if I'd be running in now, but if we get through this weekend and we start to see the contract rolling over into some of the back months, then I would say you might have a new opportunity up at around 380, and you could have basically just a 40-cent risk. If it breaks down back under the 200-day, you're gone.
Okay. Well, first of all, let's address, you're right, the media does tend to sensationalize this, because people tune into the Weather Channel when there's bad weather. They're not watching when it's sunny outside. But I will say this, and this is for the entire audience. I've been through these storms before, and this does seem like the big one. And where I'm going with this is that you had the national news coverage. Even Bloomberg was covering it. They never cover the weather unless it's in New York City. And now they realize it's up and down the East Coast. So that would explain the run up in natural gas. But you're seeing a 380 where that's the 50-day moving average. Where do we go if we break through 380 though? Because now it's looking like this storm isn't just about snow, it's also about ice and cold weather and a prolonged period of cold weather, which means more demand for natural gas. So after 380, where do you see it?
And I just want to make a point about that because Texas, which is our state that borders us to the south, last time we had a major freeze, I don't know if you remember this, a few years ago, Texas shut down.
Oh,
Their grid system could not handle this.
Yep.
That's going to be very bullish as well for natural gas. But I mean, I think the first thing you would have to look at is the most recent high that we had in natural gas, believe it or not, was in December. And that was up at around 430. So if we go from 380 to 430 and you're in something like Boyle, that's another good 10, 15% move higher. And then beyond there, you know, we're kind of in new charted territory in terms of the March contract. It hasn't been above there in quite some time. If I go back a little bit here, let me go back some years. Really, we're looking at now the next area would be where it was earlier in 2025. Wait, hold on. This is saying December 2025. I don't even remember that. But I would say if we can get through that 485 level, then I think really we're looking at maybe 7.
Wow. It's incredible. What a run up that would be. And you are right about Texas shutting down. I used to live in San Antonio, and they don't have salt trucks in Texas. They actually rely on the sheriff's department to actually pull sand out of the trunk of the police cars. That's how they're just not prepped and prepared for such a big catastrophic weather event that we may see in the next 72, 96 hours. So we'll have to see how it plays out. Let's turn the page, though, because the next big story is obviously Greenland. And this has been a topic that's caused the market just crash on Tuesday and respond favorably yesterday. And then today we're seeing more buying right now. How do you trade Greenland right now, Mish? I'm getting calls. I'm sure you're receiving calls at marketgauge.com. People going to the website. They want to know, how should I profit and monetize this opportunity?
And yes, I mean, again, this is another classic example, and something that we say over and over and over again is watch price and not necessarily headlines. And so when we had that whole rough housing about Greenland and we were going to go and strike and that big move down in the market, what was so interesting, and I just feel like I need to mention this, was that, yeah, it affected the S&P 500, it affected NASDAQ, but it didn't really affect the Russell 2000 very much, or the transportation sector, or the retail sector, and we'll get back into that later. But I just wanted to say that if you already understood the rotation that we're having, what you could assess from this was that it may have not necessarily be good for some areas, like, you know, the basics S&P 500 stocks or the tech stocks, but it was going to be really excellent for the US. And that's how you have to look at price. Otherwise, you wouldn't have seen those inside sectors of the US economy do so well. So that's how I approached it, by the way. I never got shaken out of any of my positions. I don't have a lot of tech positions as a result, right? I think the only position I lost was IBIT, because Bitcoin had a little bit of a, and I get a little nervous with Bitcoin. So, but I mean, it's not like I lost a lot of money because I trade very tight. So I just wanted to mention that. So now let's go into Greenland itself. I think one of the biggest places to make money is on the fact that the polar ice is melting. Now, from an environmental standpoint, of course, people will say, oh my God, that's climate change, scary and all of that. But we don't want to touch that subject, right? Instead, what we want to look at as the glass half full. And that means that more shipping routes emerge as a result, getting back and forth from Greenland. And that's where the US would really benefit. So I think that I looked at a bunch of stocks, and I like watching Zimmer, which is a shipping stock. And right now, it's still very cheap in comparison to where it could be potentially, number one. Broke out of some major resistance, number two. And just to put a number on it, $24. I think if it breaks through there, that's probably a good opportunity to get long and profit from this potential deal. So that's number one.
Okay.
You want to say anything before I?
Nope. I'm waiting. I'm on the edge of my seat here, Mish, and I know everyone else is because you are an expert when it comes to this. So go
Yeah.
on.
Well, and the other thing to mention from a political standpoint is that China and Russia have been exploiting the shipping routes for a long time, and the US has not been a part of that. So this would be a good thing and would open up transportation for us. So that's a good thing. The second thing, of course, would be the critical rare earth minerals that Greenland has. And even though I don't believe we're going to own the country, the fact that we will have access to the country and maybe first right of refusal, I think that's something that's on the negotiating table for these minerals will also be very positive for us because we need these minerals, of course, for AI and the data centers and, all solar energy, alternative energy, all of that. And of course, we're seeing silver. Silver just responds positively to no matter what's going on, but this is another reason good for silver. We have MP Materials here in the United States, one of the few that mines critical minerals. It might be more negative for that if we start to import in, but that would be a good thing for us in terms of natural resources. This whole onshoring thing that Trump keeps talking about, we're seeing optimism in the right sectors on that. So the third thing, too, would be from a geopolitical standpoint, it's a strategic place for us to have because Russia, if it does launch anything from the air, Greenland becomes this great buffer for that. And so I think that everything is positive for us if we do manage to achieve this in a more negotiating way with NATO giving us their blessing. And what we've really seen is that the threats seem to work because it's sort of this interesting negotiating tactic, and then people with cooler heads come to the table, and yeah, I think it's all good for us.
Right. It's gigantic for the USA. There's no doubt about it. Let me ask you though, has there been any talk because Greenland, the president of Davos was talking about how it's just a giant chunk of ice. There's 56,000 citizens that live there. What happens to those people? Any idea? I mean, and is there another way to monetize, whereas maybe American businesses could possibly move into the territory?
Well, exactly. So we just mentioned two industries where Americans could send. Like one would be obviously developing ports for shipping and shipping companies themselves. So, dock workers would be a place for
Good
people who
point.
live in Greenlanders to possibly work. And the second, of course, in terms of extraction of critical minerals would be another. And, even though we talk a lot idealistically, like with Venezuela, the Venezuelans would benefit from our presence there in the oil industry. Of course, we haven't really seen that come to fruition or even start yet. Greenland might be a little bit different because it is such a smaller country. I'm very fascinated by the history because I love Viking history, by the way.
Okay.
And yeah, and the descendants of the Vikings are amazing. They're amazing that they can even live in those type of conditions. So I would think, I wouldn't worry about all of that. I mean, I guess the worst thing would have been going in there from a militaristic standpoint. That would have been bad because who wants war? Number one. And number two is, people are concerned about Europe retaliating. I wouldn't worry about that too much. I mean, we're in a much stronger position.
Yeah, I agree with that. And plus, the Europeans are not used to this type of negotiating where they're being told what to do. They're used to having treaties and having those long-term discussions until something happens. But in our country, we want immediate results, and it looks like that might happen. So final question on Greenland though, from an American standpoint and working with others, I mean, is this turning into where we've had now our focus on Greenland, but are there possibly, I mean, are we even stopping there? Because now we have this occupation in Venezuela that seems to be working. There's been talk about possibly Cuba as well. I mean, it does seem like the United States is expanding. What are your thoughts from a trading perspective, though? I mean, do you think we might start thinning the ranks a little bit, or do you think it's because of immigration policies? I mean, I know you want to editorialize. Give me your thoughts on maybe on the political posture of all of this.
I read a very, very interesting article today. It's so hard to remain neutral and open-minded because, people get extremely emotional when it comes to politics, and Trump elicits a lot of emotion on both the pro and the anti-Trumpers, right? And so my job is to always keep the coolest head, right? That's because we're all about the trading part of it and the making money part of it. And just to get back to the Greenland and the benefit of that, and even Venezuela, if it turns out to be something that keeps oil prices down, this is why we're seeing my economic modern family doing so well, because they're optimistic about all of this. So I say, chill out, people, because there is a way to make money through this. But the article that I read today was really that the whole globalization that we focused on for the last decade or so clearly did not really work. Europe got weaker, our grip got worse in terms of, what we're trying to undo right now, in that we were being unfairly treated through trading deals and things like that. I'm certainly not a geopolitical expert, but what the article really pointed out is that this is really basically breaking down the whole status quo that we've had in this country for so long. And even though the tactics may seem harsh and the headlines and the memes go crazy, that in the end, this is good for the whole world. If US has this kind of control and the US deals with things fairly, and we don't become, a dictatorship in either this country or other countries, then, ultimately the world would be a better place. And I like to have rose-colored glasses on, so I like to think like that. But, I always am aware too of what can happen on the flip side of that.
Right, right. And we did that remains to be seen, and we'll see what the outcome is from all of this. But it does look like we are moving forward with Greenland, and I'm sure there are other ways to monetize as well. And for traders in this country, it's a way to or trading opportunities that could present themselves. So we will see what happens. Let's turn the page off of this, though. We've talked about silver a lot, gold, copper. You are an expert on in the commodity space, Mish. Right now, I mean, I'm hearing numbers. I mean, Goldman Sachs came out with a number. We're only a couple of weeks into January, and they already have lifted their gold price, their gold target. I think it was 5,400 by year end.
Mhm.
What's your take on all of this? I mean, with gold, silver, I mean, do you still see that? I mean, it just seems like everybody's jumping on the bandwagon. Is this the time maybe I should probably think about getting out?
No, I would never get out. I should say never. That's a big word. I would say I would not get out. I would just raise stops. That's how I'm doing it. I keep trailing the stop to allow for a little bit of volatility, like we saw for a minute on Wednesday in silver, and we saw in gold for a couple of days. You want to be able to ride that volatility, but you certainly want to be able to lock in the lion's share of your money, depending on where you're in. The bigger question I'm getting is, it too late to get in? And every time gold reaches a target of 4,700, was my target, and then exceeds it, that to me becomes the floor. So I would say, if you were going to get in, and it's trading what right now at like 48.84,
Hmm.
almost 4,900, that's not only a big risk, $200, but also the margins are really going to hurt you. So I think it's a little bit difficult at this point. But to me, we said, what's the caveat? And that's where gold, I've said this over and over and over again, and I can't say it enough, is the mirror. It shows the cracks. So while we're all celebrating in the market and we're seeing the Dow getting close to 50,000, and like I said, my economic modern family is like, oh, like, woohoo, woohoo. The gold is telling us a couple of things. And if you listen to Ray Dalio, you think the world's coming to an end, talking about what is gold really representing? The end of fiat? Well, that may not be the worst thing in the world if we can actually figure out tokenization and cryptocurrency, but that's not really participating in this rally yet. Number one. Number two is the huge debt We just saw Japan almost look like it was going to implode as a result of that, and yet it's calmed down. So there's always more money being thrown in, which then increases the debt and increases the spending. And that's what he's talking about, is that this is unsustainable. Now, I've been hearing it's unsustainable for about 3 years now, but I don't disagree that at some point that could be a crack that turns into something much more like a fissure. So again, this is where we watch the price, and gold gives you the opportunity to make sure you know what you're doing and do not put blinders on and just buy everything because you just think the market can never go down. It can.
Interesting. The Fed is meeting next week, as you know, and I mean, it's 50-50 whether they're going to cut or not. If they do cut, it's going to be 25 basis points, and not everybody's thinking that's going to move the needle anyway. But one area that had been rising are small caps, which tend to do well during an easing cycle by the Fed. In the rally yesterday and today, we're not seeing the movement in the Russell 2000 after hitting the all-time high. Do you think we hit the peak, and should investors maybe thinking elsewhere, or do you still have a little bit more movement to go?
Well, that's a really good question. So this is a great time to tell people about this little strategy that we like to use at Market Gauge called January calendar range. Okay. So a lot of people look at the first day of the month, sets a range, and then they use that. But we look at the first 10 trading days of the month, and then that sets a range. And so that's basically what we've got going on. And I'm sorry I'm leaning here, but I think it's really important to speak with authority as opposed to just, I'm going to put my calendar range in here so we could talk about it specifically. I did it for transportation, but I did not do it for the Russells. So let's put that in. The reason why I did it for transportation is because, interestingly enough, we hit the January high this morning and backed off. That January high is like 78.50. 78.50 is where we were back in the beginning of January 9th. So that was when we made the all-time high and a January high in IYT, transportation, big member of my family. And then today we tested it, looked like we were going to go through it, and we backed off. That could be a cautionary sign because transportation is so important to the party, right? And now if we look at IWM, oh, what happened here? Come on. Sorry about that. Little pause here.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, well, for some reason my stock is spinning and not giving me the number. Oh, come on. All right, let's go somewhere else.
It's okay.
We'll come back to this conversation. I don't know why it's all of a sudden stopped working.
Definitely a glitch. Maybe the storm's already there. But I see what you're saying.
Let's just say, for the same kind of thought, if IWM can't get through the January high and starts to roll over, if IYT can't get through the 78.50 and starts to roll over, and also Granny Retail. Oh, I see why it says it couldn't, because it didn't. The M did not come in. It's still, I don't know, there's problems with this. Oh, here we go. Okay, so now the IWM actually made a new all-time high today and is through that calendar range high. That calendar range high really comes in at 267. So that would be your number to watch for right now. We had a similar situation last year with the SPY. It broke out of the January calendar range high. The Russells didn't. And then, of course, everything rolled over as we got later into the year. Remember March and then April, we had that huge sell-off. It could be the reverse this year with the rotation into small caps. If small caps that now just broke out cannot sustain and breaks down under 267, along with that transportation I just talked about, if now that's showing some signs of maybe exhaustion, then I think we could probably look at some bigger, a decent correction. And then, of course, that's where that gold crack, we start to see some things happen, and it could be Fed induced. Maybe the Fed talks more about raising. This whole Lisa Cook thing was an also interesting development that happened with the Supreme Court saying that she is not going to be removed from the Fed. So, this is a chessboard, and that's why I keep going back to you got to be frosty. This is the year you have to be frosty. There's that horse, right? On fire, gallops, bucks, and then sometimes peacefully grazes, although we haven't seen much peaceful grazing yet.
Yeah, well, you're right about that. And the drama with the Fed, there's a lot of other stories that really have nothing to do with monetary policy. The Lisa Cook situation, as you mentioned, the DOJ criminal investigation of Chairman Powell. You have new leadership that's happening in the next few months, and we still have yet to hear who President Trump is going to be recommending to be in the chairman spot. So there's a lot happening and a lot of behind the scenes jockeying, I would imagine, as people try to save jobs as well. So there's a lot on the
We still
line
don't
right
know
now.
about the tariffs in the Supreme Court. You know, we talked about it last week. We still don't know. I mean, that could be a jolt as well. So that's why I always like to relay it to price. And I think we should talk in our remaining time here. I want to give people a couple of other trades to be taking a look
Go
at.
for it.
Okay, because that's really, at the end of the day, you and I love to talk about all this stuff, and it's so much fun. But remember, my classic line from last week is leave it for the cocktail party over the martini. And if you want to make money, follow the charts and the price. Okay, so I
Right.
want to make money, right? And I want you
Okay.
guys listening to make money. So let's not forget our vanity trade, right? The whole idea of the diet drugs. Novo Nordisk looks like it was upgraded again. You know, we've been long that forever. I still like that. I think it has a tremendous amount of upside. And some of the stocks that are along that line that are doing very well too, like for example, Stitch Fix has been under pressure for years. Looks like that could go. We're looking at New Skin. And in the biotech space, moving that also, we're looking at Replimune. We're back in that. There's a little company that does antigens, not antigens, autoimmune for fighting illness as opposed to just dealing with the symptom, and that's called ADCT. These are all the stocks that I like in that space. Pfizer all of a sudden is back over 26. So there's a lot of opportunity that people aren't talking about very much. You know, Ulta went to like 690. I mean, that stock has been on fire. Elf also basing out. So, you know, try to step away and see what else is happening under the surface. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about is we talked about DBA and the agriculturals. Well, corn is holding, wheat is holding, sugar is holding. DBA is trading at around 25.60-ish. That 25.40 is my wall of support that can't break. It gets through 25.75. Especially with these weather issues, we could start to see food prices go up. It's kind of how I felt about natty gas last week. And I think the last thing I want to talk about is I kind of switched my mindset in Bitcoin to focus more on Ethereum and BMNR, which is Tom Lee's company, Ethereum based. Because I think Bitcoin, you know, too much political football. Ethereum is here to stay. It's, you know, it's essential and will continue to be supported, I think, on dips. BMNR right now went down all the way down to, I think it was like 24.30. Last I checked, it was 29. We took a little nibble today with a $5 risk. And I think if that starts to move up and gets through like 29, today's high was 65 or so, if it gets through there, I think that that's also showing you that Ethereum could have a nice play up. And I really, you know, I think it's just so important for people to have a focus.
Okay, but there's some great trades. It's obvious that your compass is pointing north, that optimism. So that definitely translates. Let's close out the show. Give us a plug about the economic modern family.
Well, we have 12 videos now at the site on YouTube. We're changing direction a little bit in that whatever story we tell about the sector, regional banks will come out probably today or tomorrow, then transportation. Then we also created that avatar of me that comes on in the end with sort of actionable information, or at least kind of puts it together. And now we're talking about doing a Mish's Market Minute where my avatar comes out maybe not every single day, but gives some kind of an actionable tip, like I just said now, like, you know, watch DBA because blah, blah, blah. And that's great. So we're really moving along in it. And the response has been amazing, really amazing, because they're entertaining, they're fun to watch. They make learning about the market fun. And then we get a little teeny bit serious with the avatar of me at the end.
Well, they are great, I gotta say, and the videos are wonderful. Definitely recommend it to everyone out there. Go to the Economic Modern Family on YouTube and click subscribe. And of course, go to CrossCheck Media on YouTube and click subscribe. We would appreciate both of those. So that's great. Mish, you always bring the A game. This was fantastic. We'll be back again next week. We'll be able to analyze that Fed meeting next Thursday when we go live at 12 noon Eastern. And we're going to be able to talk about the market reaction and maybe what's also impacting with Greenland and the overall worldwide economy. So a lot to go over, but this was fantastic.
Thank you so much, Todd.
Absolutely. So on behalf of Mish Schneider, I'm Todd Schoenberger. Be sure to catch me on the Money Path tomorrow at 2 o'clock live. We have Jim Bianco from Bianco Research. He is going to give us an exclusive as we prep you for the Fed meeting. And he's also going to update us on the criminal investigation of Chairman Powell, as well as some other tidbits on Lisa Cook. You will not want to miss that show, 2 o'clock Eastern tomorrow. So until then, take care. Right.
Yeah, Jim Bianco.